Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat?
All right, as we push off from the dock here, and we are 3 hours, 57 minutes, and 29 seconds away from the start of the NFL draft and the Tennessee Titans being on the clock, there is a constantly evolving and changing story involving the New Orleans Saints here on draft day. A report from CBS earlier on Thursday is the one that has gotten the most attention. This was, forgive me one second, the report came from CBS NFL reporter. It was Aditi Kinkawabla, and she had this to report earlier on Thursday about the Saints and Jaxson Dart.
What I'm being told is that Jaxson Dart is not going to fall beyond that number 9 pick and the Saints. Somebody could potentially go above the Saints to try to go get him, but that's not what I'm hearing right now, that is a pick that Kellen Moore really likes.
Kellen Moore apparently has the guy he likes in Jaxson Dart, and the Saints apparently are looking at making that pick at number 9 overall. Now, I'm going to give you my thoughts on Dart at 9 in the big picture scenario here in a second, but I want to try to make this make sense because I think most people right now are going to recoil when they hear that, because we have not been talking about Jaxson Dart as a top 10 pick at all throughout this draft process. And so now here you have this scenario on draft day where a guy you were thinking maybe you'd get in round 2 or 3, all of a sudden you're going to take with a top 10 pick, potentially. I think this is kind of like as a parent, and I haven't had this life experience yet. A lot of you have. But like, let's say your daughter brings home the guy that maybe you don't love, and they're going to get married. And he asks for your blessing, and you really don't want to give it, but you kind of have to trust your child that you raised them right and they're using good judgment and going to make a good life decision, right? That's kind of how I feel today, like the helpless parent where I just got to trust that my kid is going to make a good life decision here. Here's the thing about Jaxson Dart. I don't dislike Jaxson Dart. He's a guy that had a super productive career at Ole Miss and Southern Cal, threw for nearly 12,000 yards during his career, 81 touchdowns, 27 picks. Over the course of his career, he played in 45 games with 41 starts. That was against the Pac-12 as a freshman, and in the last 3 years in the SEC at Ole Miss. He's faced the biggest competition not only in the SEC, but also internally. Remember, when he went to Ole Miss after 22, they brought in Spencer Sanders from Oklahoma State, who was a 3-year starter at Oklahoma State and was brought in basically to beat out Jaxson Dart. And everybody thought Dart, before 23, was going to hit the portal. Well, he beat out Spencer Sanders, ended up going 11-2 in 23, and then comes back last year, and they end up going 10-3 at Ole Miss. So as a starter, 28-13, there's a lot to like. He's played a ton in the best conference, threw for 12,000 yards through his college career, skins on the wall, functioned within Lane's offense, a good athlete as well. He ran in his college career for over 1,500 yards, so he gives you a little bit of that mobility. There's a lot I like about Jaxson Dart. I don't necessarily love Jaxson Dart at 9, but I think I know how we've gotten to this position today as we followed it throughout the week. So on Monday, Adam Schefter reported that the New Orleans Saints were very likely going to take a defensive lineman at 9 and look to move up from 40 to take a quarterback, either at the beginning of round 2 or in the back part of round 1. The key, though, is you'd have to get ahead of the Browns and the Giants, because everyone assumes the Browns are going to take Travis Hunter at 2 and the Giants are going to take Abdul Carter at 3. So if that's the case and those two teams still want quarterbacks, well, they got to get them. They pick ahead of you in round 2. So you got to get ahead of them. So that's where maybe the Schefter report came in, that the Saints were looking back of round 1 to take Jaxson Dart. Well, earlier on Thursday, there were reports that Mickey Loomis was making calls about trading back from 9. Presumably because if you don't really love Jaxson Dart at 9, could you move back a handful of spots, take him somewhere else in round 1, and maybe recoup some draft capital? And while that's a great idea conceptually, you have to have a trade partner. You have to have someone who's willing to make that deal with you, that wants to go up to 9, where there's a player there of value that they want, and you're willing to go to trade back to get the guy you want, who presumably here would be Jaxson Dart. And if you can't execute any of those trade scenarios, moving up from 40 or down from 9, then you're left with two possibilities. Do you take your best player available at 9 and hope your quarterback is there at 40? Or do you say, you know what? Bleep it. We believe in this guy. He's the guy our head coach wants. We hired our head coach. We got to get him his quarterback. This is the dude he wants. We're pulling the trigger at 9. And it seems like that's where the New Orleans Saints are. Just a day ago, Mykel Williams had become an overwhelming favorite to be the Saints pick at number 9. As of right now, Mykel Williams is plus 280 at DraftKings. Jaxson Dart, plus 280. It's a coin flip and then a giant drop-off till you get to Kelvin Banks at plus 700 and Tyler Warren at plus 800. That's where Mason Graham, Tyler Booker are as well. So the point being, it looks like ultimately it's a coin flip scenario where the Saints very well could write Jaxson Dart's name on the card, hand it to the commissioner to read, and the Saints for the first time since 1971 and only the second time in the history of the organization take a quarterback in round 1. And for me, I understand we all use the phrasing, the terminology, well, it's a reach. Okay. Pro Football Focus has Dart as the 6th best quarterback in this draft. ESPN has him as the 39th best player. CBS has him as the 6th best quarterback. Yahoo has him as the 59th best player. So you're talking about a guy that nobody has as a top 10 overall player in the draft. But I would also tell you that Cam Ward is not on anybody's board as the number 1 overall player in the draft. But if he's the best quarterback in the draft, you're drafting one like Tennessee is and you need a quarterback, then you take that position because that position will trump all. Y'all, if the Saints take Jaxson Dart at 9, I'm going to be okay with it. It's not the thing I would love to see them do, but it feels like they have tried other means to acquire the quarterback they want at a different spot in the draft without having to use the 9th pick. And I could argue that if you're not bullish enough to just be gung-ho on him at 9, then don't take him. But I would also argue that if you're convicted enough to write his name down at 9, then you are convicted enough on him. And if you were trying to work another scenario, that's just doing your due diligence, which every GM should be doing. How about this? I'm actually defending Mickey Loomis a little bit. All that to say, it would be so hypocritical of me to sit here today if the Saints take a quarterback and lambaste them. Because I have been yelling forever that until you are willing to take that risk, which you have done one time in the history of your organization, and it's been more than 50 years since the last time you did it. And if you're not willing to take that risk, you can never experience the benefit of hitting on your franchise quarterback. And yes, it could be Mitchell Trubisky. It could be E.J. Manuel. It could be Zach Wilson. It could be any one of those players that bust. Or it could be Patrick Mahomes. Or it could be Jaden Daniels. It could be the player that redefines your franchise. But you won't ever know until you do it. And if you keep going through this process organizationally where you're going to not use first-round picks on quarterbacks and instead commit to the likes of Derek Carr and Heath Schuler and Billy Joe Tolliver and Jeff Blake and Aaron Brooks and anybody else, Jim Everett, that you think you're going to bring in, that you're going to find this different gear. It worked one time in your franchise's history with Breeze, and it worked beautifully. But if you think that's something that's going to be regular, look at the near 60-year history of this organization and realize there's a reason why you've been mostly a laughable organization for 60 years, with the exception of the bright shining star that was the Peyton Breeze era. Look at what everyone else in the NFL that has success does. The Chiefs drafted Patrick Mahomes. The Bills drafted Josh Allen. The Ravens drafted Lamar Jackson. You've got to be willing to take your shot on a first-round quarterback. And I know people are going to say, well, next year's a better year. I get it. You don't know where you're going to pick next year. You don't know who's going to be on the board. Live in the now. And if you bust on Jaxson Dart and you're picking top 5 next year and you want to take a quarterback, damn it, take a quarterback top 5 next year. Because you're never going to be a contender until you figure out that position. And the surest way to do it is to draft the right guy. So take your shot. Maybe it'll be Jaxson Dart. We'll see.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.